Do you want to retire someday? Of course you do. Do you want your pension to be there when you retire? Of course you do. As a public employee in New York State, you made a deal when you took your job. And part of that deal is that you will get a pension when you retire. And fortunately in New York, public employee pensions are guaranteed by the state constitution. Unfortunately, if the New York Constitution is changed, your pension can vanish in a New York minute. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to explain how this could happen and the one simple thing you must do to prevent it. Here's some background. Under Article 19 of the New York State Constitution, the people of the state are asked every 20 years on whether or not there should be a convention to change the Constitution. That vote will take place on November 7th, 2017. If a majority of voters in the state vote no, then there is no constitutional convention. The document is not changed, and your pension is safe for another 20 years. We need you to vote no. However, if a majority of voters vote yes, an expensive multi-year process begins. 204 delegates will have to be elected from across the state during the next general election. These delegates could be a wide variety of people, such as elected officials and political party appointees who would collect 2 salaries. The delegates would meet in Albany the following April for an unspecified duration and discuss changes to the Constitution. Changes could be minor, or they could be radical changes, including the removal of our pension guarantee. In fact, they could even propose taking away pensions from people who have already retired. The proposed changes would then be submitted to the state voters. The public would then vote on whether or not to accept the changes. So you can see that if people vote to hold a constitutional convention, your pension might not be as safe as you thought. That's why it's so important to vote no in November 2017. Some people might argue that the state constitution needs to be changed from time to time, and they may be right. Fortunately, there's another way to do this without having a constitutional convention. Here's the other way. If an individual amendment is passed by 2 consecutively elected state legislatures and then receives a majority vote by the public during a November election, then this amendment would become part of the Constitution. This has been done about 200 times since the last major constitutional redraft. So we do not need a constitutional convention to make changes. Voters rejected the last call for a constitutional convention 20 years ago in 1997. The last constitutional convention was held 50 years ago in 1967. The proposed amendments were submitted to voters, and they were soundly rejected. All New Yorkers will be affected by a constitutional convention. In addition to preventing reduction in public pension benefits, there are several other reasons to vote no. Since the Constitution establishes the basic organizational structure of our government, changes could give too much power to one branch. The Constitution guarantees the right to a free public education. Imagine how that could change and the damage that could be done if we open up the Constitution. The Constitution also establishes various worker rights, including the right to be a member of a union and bargain collectively, and the right to workers' compensation. In addition, the Constitution requires that the state provide for social welfare needs of its citizens. But all of this could be changed. That's why it's so important for you to vote no in November 2017. Luckily, we're not alone. All public employee pensions could be put in jeopardy. Cops and firefighters, state, county, and local government employees, librarians, some healthcare professionals, and elected officials. In 1997, many groups worked together to convince voters that holding a convention was not in the best interest of the people. These groups included public sector and private sector unions and environmentalists, advocates for public education at all levels, social welfare advocates, those who will seek to maintain the requirement that New York State provide for the underprivileged, fiscal conservatives who wanted to keep existing state and debt limits in place, and some government watchdog groups who just didn't want to spend millions of dollars to hold a party in Albany. The 1967 convention cost taxpayers $6.5 million. There are estimates that a constitutional convention could cost $345 million today. Many of these groups will work together again in 2017. But 2017 is an off-election year. We will not be electing a president or a governor, nor will we be electing members of Congress or the state legislature. During off-election years, voter turnout is very low. That makes every single vote, including yours, extremely important. If you stay home and don't vote, that's the same as voting against your pension. In addition, there have already been some efforts, especially upstate, for groups pushing for a convention, and Governor Cuomo said he supported a convention in his 2016 State of the State speech. So what can you do to prevent a constitutional convention? Make sure you're registered to vote. If you haven't voted in the last 2 elections, or if you moved or changed your name, make sure you re-register. Stay informed about these issues, and write a letter to the editor against the 2017 Constitutional Convention. Talk to friends and family and explain to them in personal terms why it's so important to vote no. And most importantly, make sure you vote no to a constitutional convention on November 7, 2017.